to Six Figure Coaches with Luke Charlton, where every week we interview a successful coach and break down their business. We take you behind the scenes in their marketing, advertising, and sales campaigns. We show you what's working. We show you their frameworks, their proven strategies, so you can implement them in your business to grow. Now let's bring on this week's guest. Here is your host, Luke Charlton. Hey, this is Luke Charlton here, and welcome back to the Six Figure Coaches Show. Very excited to have you here, and we've got another amazing guest this week, which I'm about to bring on. Just before we do, remember, we premiere these episodes inside the Hermit Hole, my private Facebook community that's coaches to grow their business. Lots of great content in there, as I said, help you get more clients, get more appointments, and get more sales for your business. So with that being said, just go to thehermithole.com, and you can see these episodes. They premiere before they go into iTunes and Spotify and Stitcher, all the audio platforms. Okay, so that's thehermithole.com. If you're not a member there, what are you doing? It's free. Go over there and jump in. Okay, so with that being said, super excited to bring on today's guest. So let me read off his bio, because this is pretty crazy. Popularly known as Mr. Economy, he is the #1 tax strategist in America. And we're going to talk about what a tax strategist is. I know what it is, but there might be some listeners that don't know. Very, very powerful and profitable service. So he's the #1 tax strategist in America and the founder and CEO of the Tax Plan Experts. And he has a very successful coaching program. I'm very interested to know how he's been growing his coaching business. Let me welcome today's guest, David A. Perez. David, welcome to the Six Figure Coaching Show.
How you doing, my man? Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'm excited to have you here. So with that being said, just to give the coaches listening in some background on, how you became a coach on tax strategies.
Well, first off,
number one, right? Is there's not many people that can call themselves the #1. I'd like to know that part of the story as well.
Well, first off, anybody's watching this, I want to apologize for this camera stuff. I'm getting frustrated, but I'm going to do my best. I am not this blurry in person, I swear. But well, first off, I've been in the tax industry for 15 years. And along the journey, I kind of started doing taxes when, right around the recession. And I got into the tax industry not really knowing anything about taxes other than knowing that I didn't like paying taxes. That was my only thing. And I got into the tax industry because I left, and to be honest with you, before this, I was a realtor. And right around the Great Recession, if you will, of 2008, I was selling real estate, and I had just gotten licensed. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And right when I kind of figured it out, which was I want to do this for a long time, the market crashed right from under me. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And so I get invited to an event to learn more about the tax industry. And I didn't really want to go, but a buddy of mine invited me to this thing. And he said, hey, there's a lot of people. You might want to get to know them. And as soon as I got in the room, I realized that there was something different about tax people. The people that I was talking to were very interesting and intriguing, which is kind of not common in the tax industry to begin with. But they had a lot of things in common. And at the time, I was a young mid-20s guy. They had their lives together. That was one that I noticed. Number two, they were all excited about the business they were in, which I wasn't about what I was in. And number three, they kept on saying one thing that was all in common, which was it's a recession-proof industry. Yep. And I was like, wow, this is interesting to me. So then it became interesting to me. And as I got into the industry, I started working with pretty much anybody I could take, just like most of your kind of coaching clients, probably. It's you take on anything. And I did for a long time. I took on clients that were low income and high income and medium income and different types of scenarios. And I came to realize that, business is hard, but working with people was fun. And after working literally, we've done over 50,000 tax returns. I started to see that there was probably a need for more advanced tax strategy, especially when it came to my case, because I was in the business in 2008, but when I started to finally make money, it was around 2015. And around 2015 is when I started to see my first tax bills personally. And those tax bills were pretty excessive. And I remember thinking to myself, man, the guy who does taxes that tells people he wants to help them can't even help himself. And I was so frustrated with myself. I was pissed off. I was frustrated. I was upset because I couldn't save my own taxes. And I made a point that day when I paid my first large tax bill that I would never pay taxes that I didn't need to pay again. And so I decided to make it a kind of a commitment to myself to learn as much about the tax code as I could possibly learn, to become more of a tax saver than a taxpayer. And I started to do these things. And so this was all personally, by the way, for myself and for my friends. I was probably selfish. And in 2020, when the world started to crash, if you will, the market was, taking a dump, the economy was going crazy because of COVID. I started to realize that there was an even greater need for tax planning. And I started to help a lot more people at the time, and it became something that just became and evolved for me. I really decided that this was my path because I had the greatest impact. I had a lot of years of experience operating. I had as many as 15 offices in 2015. I had 15 tax offices preparing over 10,000 tax returns per year, which is 10,000 clients. I had managed and operated at least with over 250 employees. I had leveraged, we were doing multiple 7 figures in the industry. I had done a lot. And I realized that all of this had culminated to be able to help high net worth people who had tax problems solve these problems. And it's been one of my passions since then. And today, that's all we do. And I say I'm the number one because truthfully, I take a different approach. I take a very unique approach at a very complex thing that most people won't ever try to take on.
Okay, interesting. So basically, a tax strategist, in a nutshell, is to just reduce the amount of tax that you spend. Because it's quite. In Australia, I don't know what it is with the US. Whenever I've had to do like immigration forms or tax stuff, everything is always so complicated. I think your guys' government makes it that way on purpose. I've done because I used to. I went to the university on exchange to North Carolina. Doing all the exchange and visas and so doing no joke, it was like 6 months of like all the visas and forms, and that was a painful process. And I just I'm assuming I've done some tax stuff as well because I've done like affiliate commissions and stuff. You have to fill out like the affiliate commission forms and tax forms and stuff. Anyway, the point is there's a lot of different, especially when you're wealthy and you're starting to earn a lot more money, there's a lot of different loopholes and, as you said, strategies that a successful coach can take to reduce their tax burden. And a lot of I've done a little bit of research on this, and I've heard other tax experts also just talk about this. A lot of people don't realize, including like people who do tax returns, how much you can actually save on your on taxes if you have a proper strategy put together. Would that be accurate?
Oh yeah. So let me that was very insightful, because I think that a lot of the times the tax code is, well, first off, the tax code is written for 2 people. It's written for business owners and investors. Those are the two people the code is written for, and it's written by, just to be clear. The majority of tax code is been written by Congress. Congress is the institution that governs our country. Right. These guys are elected officials, right? Most of them are ambitious, outgoing business owners and investors. They're not, some philanthropist. They're not some sort of economist. In most cases, these people are self-serving. Yep. They're there to get an outcome for themselves. So when they write tax law, they incentivize things that they want to stimulate our economy and put money in their pockets. This is a true statement. Yeah. So the tax code may be overly complex, and maybe it's written in a way that it's not easy to understand. However, everything that it's written to do is to incentivize activities that they want. So as long as you know what activities they're wanting to incentivize, your job or our job or my job is to find those activities and maximize them. So so majority of people think about taxes as a chore or a thing to get done every year. And I think about it as a strategy to plan for, so that you can pay as little as possible, so you can keep as much as possible, so you can invest in the things that you want to do with your life. And a lot of coaches today, I actually work with a lot of coaches. And interesting thing enough, coaching in itself is a very high margin business, right? I mean, you charge a great amount of dollars in most cases for a service that's just your time. Yep. So you charge $1,000, and most of the time there's probably an 80% margin, or at least 50 or greater. So when I look at coaches, for an example, this is a great industry to be in because, coaches have such high profit margins and they can be very successful and make a ton of money. It's a great industry. However, it's also going to cause a lot of tax implications.
Mm.
Now, to pair that with is to say that if you have tax complications, the cool thing is that you're a business owner and the code is written for you.
So let me ask this, like, I'm glad you brought up coaches, and this may be, I don't know if this is a question where you would have to say, oh, I need to look at the coach's specific situation, or here's my question. Is there, like, let's say a coach starts earning, getting up to the 20, 30K a month level, maybe 100K a month, right? And so they're getting really good cash flow, as you said, because the margins are really good with coaching. Is there some general and I didn't even really know that we're going to go down this path, but I think it's an interesting topic. Is there like general tax reduction strategies that most coaches in that situation should consider to reduce their tax burden, or is it very individual for a particular coach?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's very broad, but I wouldn't say that there's such individualism to each plan. I would say it's based on the goal of the coach.
Okay.
So the reason I say that is because, see, some people just want to have a bunch of cash to buy a G-Wagon, right?
Yeah.
And some people want to have a bunch of cash to live a great lifestyle. And then there's people that I meet who want to do that, but they understand that there's a concept of investing.
Yeah.
So the biggest strategy that I employ for my clients, because most of my clients come to me for a variety of reasons, but the number one reason they come to me is because they want to leverage investments in real estate to offset taxes.
Right.
So what I do is I help them understand the tax code as it relates to how to invest in real estate as a tax saving strategy. And I coach them and I teach them on the tactics that the one percenters do. And actually I call them the 3%, the 3% of Americans who don't pay federal income tax, who make over $250,000 a year. I call it the 3% club. And so I coach them to do that because that's the strategy I would tell any coach, because for an example, if they're making $50,000 a month, right, that's great money. And they're probably netting 30 of it.
Yeah.
So they're going to have $360,000 in free cash flow at the end of the year. How do you expense that? Well, go buy a duplex, buy a fourplex, buy a commercial building, buy your next studio. And I'll show you how to use that as a tax deduction that'll cause you to owe zero or very close to zero in taxes.
Is that, let me ask, because I know that because I've done again research on this with the US, because you guys have this beautiful tax code where you can do that. It's a bit different in Australia, like, because you guys can, basically pay zero income tax because of the way that your laws are structured, and with the depreciation type laws and stuff like that with the properties.
That's right.
Now, before we get to that, my question to you is, when you've got, let's say you've got 300 grand sitting in your business bank account, right? You haven't actually brought it into your personal income, because obviously as soon as you do that, then it's now it's your personal income and you've got to pay tax on that. So do you recommend, let's say, because again, real estate is really good for this because it does allow you to do that in the US to bring down your personal, like all of your taxes. Do you recommend that a coach purchases real estate within its own entity? That way, if that real estate deal goes bust, then their core business is still protected. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like your business owns another business, and within that is a real estate deal, or maybe multiple real estate deals, if that makes sense. So is that kind of like what you would talk through? That's probably more corporate kind of law stuff.
I mean, we're going to talk generalities because I don't know the laws quite well where you're at as well as mine as well. But here's the deal.
Most of my clients are the US, so it's fine to talk
okay.
US. Yeah.
Okay. So just to be clear, in the US, typically there's really the most common entity that a coach is going to found is an LLC, a limited liability company. And typically a limited liability company is what you call a pass-through entity, which means regardless of you take money out of the business or not, at the end of the year, there needs to be taxes, and it typically is taxed on your personal return. So for an example, in the $300,000 example in a bank account, whether you take it out or not, that income, it will be all reported as income on your personal tax return, regardless if you take it or not.
Okay.
So there will be income tax paid on that $300,000 somehow, some way. It's going to go to your personal return. So Now, as far as buying a piece of real estate inside of a business, now this is going to be somewhat legal advice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to help your viewers know this, that you should never do business and own real estate in the same entity.
Right.
And the reason that you don't do that is because you want to create a barrier wall in between you, your asset, which is your property, and your business, because there's a lot of liability in coaching. There's a lot of liability because you're promising a deliverable that sometimes isn't measurable. Sometimes, right? An outcome. If I went to a therapist, for an example, although they can say they're going to make me feel better, I don't know how to measure feeling better. And so I could come back and say, hey, you didn't do your job right. I want my money back. And you say, sue me. And so I do.
Yeah.
You get it?
Yep.
So to have a business on one side, I can sue your business, but I don't get your real estate because it's on another entity. So you don't buy them together, you buy them apart. And you usually keep a barrier wall, which is pretty much like a trust or a legal structure that protects both sides, so you don't lose anything in the event of a lawsuit, litigation, divorce, whatever the circumstance that may cause you harm.
Okay.
I know that was real technical, by the way.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to bring that up. I know it's very kind of technical, just for coaches to consider, because I think because we're talking like reducing your tax burden, right? And then investing in things is a great way to do that, but you want to do it. You want to structure everything legally. So it's, again, this is not like a law or corporate law type episode. It's just letting coaches know, hey, if you're going to go down this path, make sure that this is something that you address. So in terms of reducing a tax burden, you would recommend, particularly, I guess, if you're in the US, that you would use real estate. Now, can you go into, just, you don't have to go into too much detail, but just why real estate is such a great option to reduce your tax burden? Like, you can touch on like the depreciation stuff if that's relevant.
Well, this is the cool part, because the majority of people would like to just get a deduction of any sort, right? So you would, for like example, you could buy a vehicle and get a deduction. You could buy a piece of machinery. You could buy a MacBook or a Mac Air or an iPad or a phone. Yep. These are all examples of deductions. However, real estate, although it becomes a deduction, the difference between real estate and any other asset is that it's appreciating. So what that means is, even though you're going to take a deduction on your tax return, the value of the property actually increases over time. Whereas if you take a purchase of a vehicle, for an example, let's say you buy a new vehicle, the moment that you drive it off the lot, it is depreciated, meaning it's not worth as much as what you paid for it.
Yeah.
So you get, even though you may get the same amount of deductions on your tax return, you are missing out on any appreciation. So in real estate, you get appreciation one angle, one direction, and a depreciating asset that the IRS considers depreciation, which is really paper losses that you get to take advantage of. And since there's cash flow that comes from that property, you also benefit from the cash flow that's going to come from it. If you're renting it from yourself, or if you have tenants, or you have some sort of ongoing business activity, so basically you get possibly cash flow, you get an expense on your tax return, which reduces your tax liability, and you get an appreciating asset, which helps you build wealth.
Yeah, and
that's what real estate.
Yeah, it's really like, there's multiple benefits to real estate, and for those like kind of trying to wrap their heads around, like, hey, how does it appreciate and depreciate at the same time? So do you want to, because obviously we all understand appreciation for a house. So why can it depreciate as well? Like, how does that work?
Well, so the IRS code is written so that they give you what they call depreciation expense on any asset, a tangible asset that has a useful life greater than a year. So for an example, a laptop would be 3 years, or a car would be 5 to 7. A piece of real estate, like a single family home, they have it deemed at 27.5 years, and a commercial property at 39. So what they do is, what the IRS gives you, this is just code, right? So all it does is, if you get the cost of the real estate and you divide it by its useful life, so let's say a single family home, they give you the cost, let's say $1 million of the property, then you divide it by 29.5, and that's your deduction every single year. Now, this is just the IRS code. Now, the reason the code is written this way is to incentivize an activity that they want. Again, the IRS code is written for investors and for business owners. Right. So they say the IRS not the IRS code, the Congress got together and said, it's a very good idea if we get people to invest in real estate, because real estate brings in property taxes. It keeps our communities happy. It employs people. It brings jobs, if you will. It stimulates our economy. So they said we should incentivize people who are willing to invest. So that's the incentive, the deduction on your tax return. Now, the cool thing is, at the same time, even though you're getting a deduction, we all know real estate appreciates by 3 to 5% annually, except for the last 2 years. Except the last 2 years. But these years, now you're going to see an average growth of 3 to 5%. So if you bought a $100,000 property, you're going to see a $3,000 increase in value, then a $6,000, then a $9,000, then a $12,000, and so on and so forth. So your asset is worth more, but you're getting a deduction on your tax return, which is cool. And it creates abilities for you to have more cash, because the more deductions equals less taxes. Then what you do is you take that money that you would have then paid in taxes and buy another property. That's the goal. You just keep buying real estate. Keep buying real estate.
So I think the key is, like, I think where the reason, and you can correct me if I'm wrong with this, the way that you don't pay taxes is because with the depreciation formula that you use, let's say the depreciation is like $30,000 over the year, right? That's what it works out to be for that particular year, $30,000. And you bring in $25,000 in cash flow, right? So to the IRS, you've actually lost $5,000, right? To you, you've actually put 25 grand in your pocket, and you don't have to pay taxes on that, because of that formula, you have technically you've actually lost money. Is that like how I?
Correct. So you pass zero with depreciation and other expenses like real estate taxes, insurance,
all the expenses and stuff,
maintenance. All the expenses plus that will always go below zero. Well, not always. In most cases, will exceed your income. So you'll always be negative, which will cause you to not pay taxes on the real estate.
Okay, but when you my other question is, so you've got that 25 grand in cash flow, right? And you've paid for your expenses, whatever. So you're technically below zero. Isn't it still in the company? Like, how do if I take it out of the company, isn't that like a personal income event that I then pay taxes on?
What do you mean by take it out of the company?
Like, because when the tenants pay me cash flow, right, it goes into the company's bank account, the trust, right? Let's say a trust, and then to use that money, I have to put it in my personal bank account. I can't just go and buy like a new car or whatever that I want, non-business related expense, I should say. Isn't there a time where I have to take that money out of the company to use for my own personal income? Like, isn't that then charged as personal income?
No, because you reported the income on your tax return. You just didn't pay any taxes on it. So it's already been reported. It's supposed to, basically, since you didn't owe taxes, it's tax free. You can do whatever you want with it.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, we don't have that I don't think that we'd have that law in Australia.
Well, let's get the what is it? Parliament, Congress? What do you guys got? What is it? Let's get them to vote.
There's definitely like depreciation formula. I know that there is that, but I don't think there's a way to actually, because I don't want to do a lot of research trying to figure out like.
I would venture to guess there is a very similar concept in every country, because every country, every pretty much developed country has these laws in place to incentivize activities. And every government wants more jobs. Every government wants people to own more real estate, to pay more taxes. Every government wants to create a stimulus in the economy. So maybe it's not worded the same way, but there's got to be incentives to do it.
There's definitely depreciation. You can definitely claim on depreciation. Obviously, there's appreciation. I'm going to have to talk to a tax strategist over here, because again, for the coaches listening in, it's such a great, you're getting all this extra cash flow, right? Once you're starting to, have that system set up that brings in consistent clients, you've got to use it. You've got to invest that smartly, and who better to model than, as you just mentioned a second ago, David, is like the top 3%. Like, what are the top, like, the Robert Kiyosaki's of the world? Look at what he's done with his coaching business. So he has his coaching business, he uses the cash flow for that to invest in properties as well. Like, he's a
great example, by the way. Robert Kiyosaki, great example. Actually, just side note, we're negotiating to have him speak at our next event.
Oh, nice. Yep.
Because he is a good example of exactly what we're trying to create. It is a tax incentivized investment strategy that would cause you to pay little to no taxes, that you can duplicate year over year over year while you accumulate wealth. and so that you'll never have to worry about money again.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. All right. So David, let me ask, let's kind of change gears. I'd like to go into, I mean, being the, the top tax strategist in the US, I'm sure that, you get a lot of your clients through referrals, but do you have any other marketing or sales systems set up to grow your business, or is it just through word of mouth mainly?
No, actually, this will be interesting for your coaching clients. So I'll be very, I mean, if you want me to talk strategy on marketing, I can definitely share a lot. Would you like me to do that? Because I will.
Well, that's why they're listening in.
Awesome. Okay. So first off, I mean, I know you probably have a good following. What I believe, first off, is if you're going to be in marketing or sales, which I am, you need to target one audience, right? So we talk about a niche market. So I help high net worth or high income earners mitigate or eliminate their tax liability using advanced tax strategies, and then using that money to invest in real estate. That's who my niche is. So I say that all the time. That's all I speak to. I only work with high income earners who make over $250,000. I can only help them if they want to invest in real estate. So that is my claim to fame. So what that does for me is it's an easy message to share. And if you agree with me, if you believe in the same things I do, we are going to do business together. And if you don't, if you're not high net worth and you don't like real estate, we don't need to talk. And you get that by me saying that, correct?
Right. Yep.
Okay. So from a marketing standpoint, I am actually pretty heavy into social media. I do organic outreach. I don't pay for ads. I don't run social media advertisement. I've built a pretty good following of about 60,000, I think, or ish people on Facebook, about 30,000 on Insta. We've probably got a few thousand connections on LinkedIn. And all I do is I just put out content. That's all I do. I put out reels, articles, blogs, emails, posts, everything that I can give away for free. So I give away information, content, anything I can give. I'm going to give it to you because I obviously know that it'll come back to me doing business with you.
Yeah, cool. Is there like a call to action at the end of those pieces of content to book a call? Like, what's the strategy there?
Interesting thing enough, man, I don't actually have a lot of CTAs. I don't put a lot of CTA because I give. Like, it's so weird. People would probably never believe this, but I don't say, hey, call me or DM me or click below. I don't do any of that. I just give away stuff and people go to my link tree and book appointments.
Yeah, I think what's important to note there, and you touched on it already, for the coach listening in, because I know there's a lot of coaches listening right now going, I'm posting lots of content and I'm not building any audience and I'm not getting any appointments. But the key to your strategy, David, is how clear you are on your niche, like your target market, exactly, what you're doing for them, and who they are, and how you're helping them, and creating content specifically for that target market, right? A very specific niche. And so I think the coaches that are doing lots of posting that I see, and because I work with coaches to help them get clients, right, get more appointments. A lot of the time their content is, they're not really sure on who they're targeting, and so their content is a bit all over the place. Their message is not as refined as yours, and so it's not really hitting the mark with anyone, and so they're not able to build that traction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I find this all the time because the challenge is that we all want to, when we get into business, we just want to make money. Like we have bills to pay, mouths to feed, things to get done. So we take on anybody, right? When I first started, I took on any clients. It was like, I help you if you have money. That was my statement. and it was like, it doesn't matter what the problem is, I'll figure it out, right? Yes or no? We've all been there. So what I realized though is that's such a hard message to target anyone. It's such a hard message just to say I solve tax problems, because then there's problems at every level. And what I believe is that if you're going to solve a problem for anyone, you should solve it for the person you can solve it the most for. And if you understand that, then it narrows down your scope of who you're targeting, and it keeps on going narrow and narrow and narrow. And typically we solve the problems for the people that we've been on the same journey before as. So for an example, if you're a coach in health and fitness and you're a male and you're in your mid-20s or late or early 30s, and you've dealt with obesity or the challenges of overcoming maybe a food addiction or struggles with waking up early or whatever it is, then you talk to that segment because that's who you are. You solve your own problems the most.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm a high income earner. I make very good income. I want to buy a ton of real estate. I am a multifamily real estate investor. We've got over 100 doors. We've got a few million under management. I want to talk to the guy who says, I want to be like you, David.
Yeah.
That's who I want, because it's easy for me to recreate the journey for them.
Yeah.
And if you get that, then marketing's easy. It's easy when you do that.
That's what I find with most of the coaches that I help. They're coaching on the transformation that they went through. And if they're ever unclear on their target market, that's always the first place that I start. I literally say, tell me your story. Tell me and they go, oh, I struggled with irritable bowel syndrome and I got over that. And I struggled with this and that. I'm like, well, what about that? It's like, oh yeah. Actually, I'd love to do it. Anyway. So for the coaches listening in, your own story is a really great place to start to help you get clarity on that very specific target market. I think that's great.
Yeah. The biggest challenge with coaching is that a lot of people try to become a coach to something they've never done before or never experienced before. And so it becomes very difficult and it becomes inauthentic. Yeah. And it has no resonance with the audience. And I actually coach a lot of people, not just on the tax side. So there's a lot of people who come to me who want to do the things that I'm doing that are in the same space.
Yeah.
So I coach them on this, and that's why I know a lot. And I usually walk them through a framework. Tell me who you can serve that the highest. Then I'm like, so tell me what excites you about this particular group. How do you solve their problem the most? Like, what makes you different and unique than your competitor? Yep. Who have you done this for before, if you've done it at all? And if you can't answer those questions, then I know that that's not your market. Even though you want to say it is, even it's because they're very well qualified or because they have the most money, it's not your market.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'm just going through this with another client of mine. We've got his whole campaigns converting, and then he's like, "Oh, can we bring in these high net worth individual? Like he's in weight loss." I'm like, dude, you're talking to the right people. He just doesn't know how to sell. Anyway,
interesting enough. And by the way, I mean, I'm not trying to sway off, but I love this stuff because this is what excites me. And I actually I'm big into health. Maybe I don't look as healthy as most people, maybe not as healthy as you, but I'm super into health. Like I'm a workout 6 days a week guy. I eat pretty decent. I'm on supplements every day. Are you familiar with peptides and things?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
So one of my personal friends is kind of like the number one energy optimizing doctor in the whole country.
Oh, wow.
And we talk about health pretty often. We're about to launch a program. So BYOE, which is the symbol right behind me, is my book. It's called Build Your Own Economy. It's my concept. Yep. And in that concept, I have 4 components, which is 1, wealth. 2, I have to reword it. It's health, wealth, legacy, and values. And so when I talk about health, I believe health is the only thing that you can live on. Like you can make a ton of money, but if you don't have health, what's the point of having money? Or what's the point of showing up to work if you can't deliver at the highest level? And anyways, your distribution of talents is limited to your health.
Yep.
And so we're launching something called BYOE Health, Build Your Own Economy Health, in May, which is really a coaching program for people who want to optimize their health at the highest level. So just to go along with lines of this, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because the energy optimization, I've been trying to coach him to start focusing on the right market, because he only should be focusing on high-end individuals whose problems they can afford to solve and who really have a commitment level. It's important to understand that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say again to coaches all the time. It's like because we get into coaching because we want to coach on whatever topic it is, right? It could be, weight loss or dating or whatever. And we constantly focus on our own program and our own process because that's what we're passionate about. And we forget that we're actually selling to a market, and your business the market actually comes first before you even think about your offer, right? You always want to go to the market first because they're the ones, if there's no market, if there's no problem, there's literally no program for you to sell to. So and this is what the best copywriters in the world often do is, and that's old school copywriters, that what they would do is they would go to a market, they would look at here's this particular market and what they're struggling with. I'm going to write a sales letter to this market, and I'm going to think of the most amazing product that hits on all of their frustrations and pain points. And I'm just going to make this imaginary product. And then I'm going to go and try and create it. And all the benefits that I couldn't actually create in the product is going to scratch them off. And anyway, that's the best way to create a product, because now you're actually fitting your product with what the market actually wants, versus let me create a product or a program. Now I'm going to go try and find a market for it. It makes it much harder.
Well, so anyway. a lot of that's exactly right. A lot of people try to solve a problem with a solution that's not really solving the problem. Like we say, well, I'm lacking energy, and you're like, well, then they're like, well, what vitamin supplements do I need? Like, that's not what they want to hear.
Yeah, exactly right.
They want the dream outcome.
Yeah.
Right. What's the outcome? And you have to know the pain, right? Wherever they are today. And I love there's the tale of two, or what is it? The story of two. Anyways, it's the hero's journey. It's basically how you tell a story, right?
Yes.
And I think most coaches get confused. They think they're a hero, that they're supposed to save the freaking day for everyone. And the truth is that you're a guide. Your client is the hero.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
If you get that concept, then you're not trying to make you the best. You're trying to make your client the best, and you're trying to get them to an individual reaches an out or a struggle. The struggle is X. How do you overcome it? It's with your guidance. You coach them through the struggle, and once you coach them through the struggle, you're not the hero. You're the guide. When they win, they're the hero.
Yeah, I like
and if
that.
you get that, it helps a lot. You don't want to ever be the hero to anyone. You just want to guide them to be their own hero.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, David. It's been an awesome interview. As I didn't really envision us going down the specific tax strategies, but it's a super valuable topic for the coaches listening in for when they do get that cash flow coming into their business. So thank you for giving up your time. I've got one more question, then we'll let coaches learn more about you. That question. This is what I ask all guests at the end. You've got 1,000 coaches below you. You're at the top of a mountain to get on the coaches, and you can only shout one message to be successful. What is that one message?
To the coaches, right? You said?
Yeah, there's 1,000 coaches below you. You're at the top of the mountain. You can only shout them one message to be successful.
Damn, that's pretty deep. I have a lot of messages. I would say, well, I mean, just like I said, I really like it. Be the guide, not the hero.
Be the guide, not the hero. I like
that. Be the guide, not the hero. And you always keep yourself, you humble yourself every day. I think too many of us get overwhelmed thinking that we're supposed to save the day when we're just supposed to guide somebody to make a decision. I think, I know I'm going a little long-winded, but I think this is important. I think that if you're going to help somebody with a transformation, you can't tell them what to do. You can only guide them to make a better decision. And that's an important thing, because people have to learn from their mistakes. But at the same time, your job is to help them avoid them. But you can't tell people what to do. That's the biggest challenge with coaches. They're like, this is how you're supposed to do it, and this is what you do. Instead of giving people direction, question their decisions, and they'll come to the right conclusion. But you got to question their decisions. You never, ever, as a coach, you never tell people what to do. You question their decision. So why are we doing it this way? What do you believe that's going to do? Tell me a little bit more about why you're thinking this through this way, or how is this happening? And if you ask those questions, what you do, number one, is you uncover the real problem, which is probably not that they don't have money. It's probably that they have a fear of losing money, right? Or it's a fear of whatever. There's always a fear that's underlying that you will uncover by asking the right questions. And by the way, if you're any coach today, the whole point of coaching is to uncover problems, because whatever one client's going through, all of them are going through.
Yeah, exactly right.
And then,
you know what?
And then you take it.
This is exactly what I do with my my staff as well. So what I found when I first started hiring staff is that they'd come to me with all of these little trivial kind of questions that I'm like, like they already know what they would do, but they're afraid to make the decision in case they get it wrong, right? So they come to you and they want you to make the decision so they don't have to take that responsibility. So what I started telling them to do is like, hey, when you've got a question that you're not sure about, first of all, I said, look, if this is, because I run an ad agency, right? So I said to my campaign manager, if it's going to cost the client less than $500, You make the decision. Anything that could cost the client more than $500, then you come to me if you're not sure. Okay. Now, even when you come to me for like an ad question or whatever question related to clients, what I want you to do is come to me and say, here's what I'm stuck with, and here's what I would do in this situation, right? So getting them to tell me like what would be their decision before, because it was quite annoying for me answering all these questions. So again, because they already knew the answer, but they just wanted to run it by me. So now I get them to take responsibility, and I'll say, yeah, or I'll say, no, I wouldn't do it like this way for whatever reason. But anyway, that's what I do. So it works whether, for your clients. And when you start hiring staff, you're actually a coach for your staff as well. You're a guide. What you're saying there, David.
I believe that. By the way, I do very similar thing, except I tell my team to bring me 3 solutions.
3 solutions.
Give me 3 solutions.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, so tell me which one you would pick, and then tell me what you think I'm going to pick. And I keep on doing it until the point where they come to me and they're like, you're going to pick number 2, right? I'm like, you got it. Now don't come back.
Yeah, exactly right. Don't come back. Yeah. Make the decision.
By the way, it sounds like you're a great leader, by the way, because a lot of the times you don't get that. I think people take boss as a dictator versus, a leader. A boss is supposed to come in and coach their team to success. Although a good coach will tell you the things you don't want to hear, will have uncomfortable conversations, but they'll do it from a place of caring, understanding, and wanting to improve you. And if you have that mindset and you go into it and they feel the same way, man, you will change lives. But if you're truly not there for the right reasons, like for money or for authority or power, it'll never work.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've all had that boss. I mean, I don't know if you've had a 9-to-5 before, but I have had a few. We've all had those types of bosses, the overbearing micromanager type bosses.
That's why you got your own. That's why you're an independent contractor now.
Exactly. Exactly right. All right, David, thank you for coming on and giving it time. As I mentioned, this has been a really, really valuable interview. Where can the coaches listening in go to learn more about you and your company?
Well, first off, if you'd like to get a copy of my book, I actually have just get shipping. It's $10 on my website, davidaperez.com. Free, just pay for shipping, davidaperez.com. If you're interested in maybe some tax planning, you want a tax strategist, you can go to my website, taxplanexperts.com. Those are 2 websites. And then any social media channel, it's I am David A. Perez. I am David A. Perez, any social media channel. And I publish 3 to 5 videos a day, and all of those are on every social media channel, which will give you tax tips. So even if we're not working together, if you want to know about real estate investing or you're wanting to know about tax strategy in any way, there's probably a video. And on YouTube, I've got the BYOE show, Build Your Own Economy show. You can also catch me there too.
Okay, cool. And just for the reference, because there would be some Aussie listeners listening in, the tax planning side of things, that's specifically for U.S. residents, or do you work with international people?
U.S. residents. I'm sorry, I'm not that skilled. And again, this is going back to being the best at what you can be best at.
Good. I just thought I'd throw that out there just in case I get some Aussies calling, can you help me plan my taxes?
Well, if you want to get a copy of my book, we'll mail it to you. That's for sure.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks again, David. I appreciate your time, and thanks again to the coaches tuning in, and we'll see you on next week's episode. See you then. Cheers.